We've all arrived at once, so it's been a little bit hectic. I can face this way. Here, where are you? Yeah. I think there's about maybe 15, 16, 17.
Cool. Brilliant. That's good.
Cross section, people that are interested in neurodiversity. Oh, I'm pointing now. Anyway, you're just going to be staring at everybody as they come in. We're going to do questions, and we'll kick off with a panel.
Cool. Did not really catch what was happening, but yeah, cool. Oh, should have brought a beer.
Yes, you did. I need a beer. Just to let you know, we had to have a move. We're actually inside our office. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Perfectly.
We had to move into our office because the tech didn't work.
It's on theme then. That's good.
Exactly. Just like everything. Det känns som att vi kan ha mycket kul att prata om framöver.
Det tror jag också. Det måste vi göra.
Låt oss ta jag är rätt ofta i Stockholm, så låt oss ta en kaffe eller annat.
Ja, nice. Det gör vi.
Fortsätter vi svenskan sen.
Precis. Jag har inte sån här widescreen. Kanske jag också vill ha det.
Har jag det? Tänkte jag säga.
Vad sa du?
Har jag det? Tänkte jag säga.
Ja, men du har det. Du är lite samma format som de andra.
Sweet.
So we are going to start to share. I slacked it to you. Would we meet up? I saw the one just about that. Oh no, put it here. Okay, and this one should be. I'm just gonna put it over there, okay? I think that's best.
I'm going to sit at the back of your bag.
Yep.
Long name and long title.
Yes.
The other two.
How do you pronounce that in English?
Sveinung.
Yeah.
Very international. It's the same. Do you say
the same? Yeah. Okay.
Languages? Yeah.
And the last name?
Skaalnes.
Yeah.
But I went as Sven for 6 years in England.
I see that though. I see that. I just go with Michael. I've stopped trying to make that different. It's like, yeah, Michael.
Stop educating ignorant people around you.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, Michael's good. They're like, Michel, isn't that a girl's name? Like, yeah, it is.
Are you a French girl?
Yeah. Exactly. That's the most common. Like, no, it's actually challenging in Sweden as well. I've been appointed
to the.
Hey,
Michel, are you guys doing great?
Oh, yeah. Shit.
For the people, guys, give them a shout today. Hey. Cool. I'm just going to do a quick introduction. So if you could just give me a minute. If you could put yourselves on mute, that would be great. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Sweet. You won't be able to see me. You'll just be able to see my arms. I've been going to the gym recently. Good morning. Oh, good morning. See, this is how you know I'm used to delivering workshops in the morning. In fact, nice. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the Augmented Coach Talk. Today is going to be an amazing evening full of conversations and insights. As you saw on the tables, I tried to distract you from not going to the tables because we're going to spend a bit more time developing and innovating and just doing a few exercises that we can begin to explore what it means to be the Augmented Coach. My name is Tambo, for those of you who haven't met me. I'm a senior digital coach at Freeformers with a background in behavioral science and performing arts. A bit of background about Freeformers. Would you like to? Oh, and I'm here with Erica. Let me introduce Erica.
Hi, I'm Erica, and we've got two other guests that we'll be introducing themselves shortly now. And I'm co-hosting this with Tambo today. So I'm a learning solution strategist. I did work with Freeformers as an employee for over 2.5 years. And once you're a Freeformer, you're always a Freeformer. So I'm really glad to be back here today. And also having some other projects at the moment around learning design, solution design, and how you nudge people to enact behaviours that mean things always as the world changes.
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what Freeformers do. Because the world is changing at a huge exponential rate, we work alongside digital transformation programs. So we work on the mindset piece so that organizations, as much as they can implement all this new technology, it doesn't go anywhere if the people themselves are not moving with the technology. And that's exactly what we do. We go to workshops, we deliver workshops, and we've even created this amazing app, which are we going to talk about today? No, we're not going to talk about that today.
Anthony can tell you about
it. Anthony can tell you.
He's the CTO.
Not today. Not today. So we have a few Freeformers in the room. So that's Anthony, he's our CTO, and of course we have Sarah at the back, who's our COO. And so pretty much that's what we're going to do. So we're going to get stuck straight into this conversation, because I think for us, we had a call this afternoon, which was really exciting in regards to understanding how the role of the augmented coach is being transformed due to digital and technology. Now, on the call, we have Michel, and we also have Sven, and they're both calling in from, where are you guys calling in from, actually?
Today I'm in Stockholm.
Yeah, today he's in Stockholm. Ooh, great. And who else is on, who was that? And what about you, Michel? Where are you calling?
Gothenburg, Sweden.
Yeah, Gothenburg, Sweden. So we're going to get right into it. And in order to do that, I was hoping that, Erica, you could give us a bit of background about your role, and also how you've seen digital transform the way we as coaches are constantly delivering our work.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of slides that might help you.
Yeah.
So, yes, so I'm really interested in both the design aspect and the delivery aspect of learning design, solution design, facilitation, teaching. And I think we're just on the cusp of education probably never looking or feeling the same ever again. And I think it's the same for quite a few things. Can I have the next slide?
Yeah, of course.
And that's because, to steal the line of one of the co-founders of Freeformers, it's a VUCA world. So volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And that's for everybody really right now. And that's how Freeformers feel about transformation, and how I feel about actually the world that we're in right now, and the decisions we all make, not only as professionals, either in learning design, coaching, or anywhere else, or anything. So I think that's a nice one.
Yeah.
So this is what I've been thinking about. So I think that we're designing experiences for people who are living in this world. And this world means there's a lot of different choices that we're making every day. And rather than it being maybe like a traditional progression route through careers, it's not going to be like that anymore. It's going to be a world where we're always learning, where everything's always changing, and it's about being comfortable, being uncomfortable. And that's not necessarily that comfortable for a human. Although change is always certain and constant, we don't necessarily like change. But now it's happening faster than ever before. But there's also a bonus to this world, and a bonus for the learners that we're doing before, or we're facilitating with, is that they've never been in the heart of the decision making more so than they are now. And that's because they're demanding an experience that is similar to the other experiences they're demanding in other areas. And this is why you see things like retail banking being disrupted, shopping being disrupted. Because right now, humans or people aren't buying, say, just a product. They're buying a solution. They're buying something that seamlessly solves something. So, something I mentioned earlier, you don't buy a thermostat anymore. You buy a energy management solution. You don't go and get a loan from the bank. You are using a multitude of services to have a wealth management service. And you can do that all from your phone. That might not be the same for everybody, but everybody is becoming more conscious of being able to make the decisions themselves. And for us, that means thinking like the product owners of an app, or thinking like behavioural scientists and thinking, how can we nudge people to do this?
Yeah.
And for our learners, I think it's turning the opportunity for them to have a pay-as-you-go service. For me, I kind of call that a minds gym. A bit like you've made join the gym and go and do classes. It's about picking and mixing and paying and having and paying. And when I mean by paying, I don't just mean money, I mean time, because time is really valuable. So you're paying, you've got skin in the game, whether that's money or time. You're going to make the right choice for you, whether it's a choice based on necessity, I need to earn more money, gain the skills to do a job that will pay me more money, or out of enjoyment, or out of any of the other reasons you may be choosing to learn. So then I started looking around and thinking, well, how does technology and how does our role as a coach or a learning experience designer augment with the technology that we're using to provide a service for the people that may be paying for it in time or money? I started to look at a few examples that I think really show that right now. Has anyone heard of Jolt? So Jolt is an Israeli-American edtech startup. it's got a really interesting concept. It is the pay-as-you-go version of learning. It's totally driven by the people that call themselves jolters. It is very targeted towards, say, 20 to 35-year-old people, but anyone can go.
Yeah.
And the idea is that you sign up to the learning that you need when you need it, and you use an app, and then you sign up like you would a gym class, and then you turn up at a jolt room. And this is what's really critical, because this is the human element of it. The jolts, they call it being jolted, and the learning design of the experience is really clever as well, because you leave a jolt session knowing that you could not have learned the things that you learned in that session elsewhere. You couldn't Google it, you couldn't have found on YouTube. And that's how they work. So you pick jolt rooms, you go and turn up at those rooms, there's only 14 people in the room, and then the facilitator in that experience designs the learning around the people that have signed up. So you look at their profile, and they say, right, there's X, Y, and Z, and then they have interventions inside the session that is targeted towards to the people in the room. At the same time, they've got a plethora of outstanding people that are presenting learning opportunities in that room. So they have, Airbnb, CEO talking about something. So Jolt is a really interesting concept. Then I looked elsewhere, and that's like the top end of the spectrum. Jolt is like £90 a month subscription fee. Then there's all sorts of learning happening online in places that are accessible to people where they are, and this was an example. This is an online group, Money and the Money Manifesting School, and this is very much targeted to people who are very busy, people that may have families, young families, people that may be doing 1 or 2 jobs, and it's really a personal development course about earning money wisely and making wise choices with money. It's delivered entirely on Facebook, using Facebook Live. It uses the power of the people. So again, the connection here is people. It's meeting people, but having technology to enable you to do that. Most of the people that attend this course, and there's roughly around 80 people per course, have paid around £200 for the course, and you can have your money back if it doesn't work. But the power, again, the facilitators create a community which encourages the learning and the enactment with a series of nudges throughout the week between their live sessions to encourage positive money behaviours, which they call manifesting. So that's another example that reaches out to people where they already are, in a place they can consume it easily, at a cost point that means they turn up. So when I asked the facilitators of this course, they said they first ran it for £50, but they had a 50% drop off. They charged £200, and they got an over 85% retention for the entire course. So that was around skin in the game, time and money. And then the last example I wanted to give was going into some of the stuff you've probably seen in the invite. So this is around the use of emerging technologies, or not necessarily emerging, but the ability to use different types of technology because we will be getting 5G access, because we have smartphones, etc., etc. And it was the idea of how do you then create an experience which allows Tambo, for example, to be in front of somebody that he's engaged with, that he wants to enable to learn and they want to learn, but it doesn't have to be in the same room. And how can you do this in a way that has that face-to-face interaction, but but is scalable? And this is what's coming up next. This is something that was launched last May, I think, by Virgin. So it was, you've still got the cumbersome barriers, like for example, you have to wear a headset, so everybody knows, etc., etc. So you are still limited by the limitations of technology at the moment, but it's accelerating quickly. It's not going to be, you can do projections, etc. already. So some really interesting opportunities out there that I feel allow us to use tech in a way that we really thought differently about, and we thought hard about how we're going to use it to design a journey that is seamless for learning. I don't mean easy, because learning isn't always easy, and when it's not easy, you're at the edge, and that's when you learn a lot.
Yeah.
But it's seamless to engage with it. I think that's what technology is going to enable, to reduce barriers, and it's going to mean that we can offer a seamless service to learners to learn what they need to learn when they need to.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting about what you mentioned is the fact that in both situations, when particularly with the first two examples, it was the fact about using live data with the different people that are in the room in order to change the way that you facilitate the session. And so for us as coaches, I can imagine that can be really powerful. But that also leads me onto what Michel that's what you do, Michel, in regards to the augmented coach and also looking at beyond the data and creating what you've created. I don't want to do too many spoilers, but it'd be great if you give a bit of background about yourself and also what you've done in regards to using data and also quantifying that in order to create a solution to that situation.
Yeah, so just to give a short introduction to what we're doing, we've developed a virtual coach which follow-ups on training participants after classroom trainings to help them reach the goals that they've set up for themselves. Basically, make sure that goals that individuals have created at the end of trainings are being activated when they get back to their everyday life, when they get back to their work, and make sure that people get the chance to practice these new gained skills when they get back to their work, and that they get the possibility of reflecting. So basically what we've created is a digital bot that focus on enabling reflecting and practicing activities in your workday, but connecting that to the goals that you set up in a training session. So we've taken the concept of creating an action plan and then basically made sure that the content from an action plan is activated when each participant gets back, and that other people within your proximity, your managers and colleagues and so forth, can be engaged within that content when you get back. And in shortness, what we do. And for us, data has been extremely important in driving that activity, especially in regards to goal setting. I mean, we when you get quite a lot of data, and this is maybe even more experiments that we're doing right now, but we have a lot of people creating these goals afterwards and getting a lot of data on what is characteristics of goals which people are also achieving. How do you structure a goal which is more achievable than others? And can therefore use that data on also helping more people create better goals, and helping the people also to engage through this digital coach in the best ways that we know are suitable to create a behavioral change. So data is extremely valuable for us.
Nice. And how did you get to that immediate solution in regards to deciding that was the best way to get around it with using the data, but also as the way you've iterated and refined your process?
Yeah, it took us 4 years of failing, I'd say. I mean, we've been working with the challenge of basically training not giving the results that we hope and want in regards to behavioral change. We've been working with that challenge for 5 years now, and I mean it's a continuous learning. You constantly learn new attributes in regards to the challenge and see new activities that would be beneficial. And for us, the solution of a virtual coach was actually something that came up 1.5 years ago. Up until that, we've been focusing on, as many others, creating the right kind of structures, thinking a lot about platforms, systems, and so forth. How can we enable processes, basically? But for us, a huge breakthrough came, and I think I mentioned this before, Erica, when we talked about it as well, that someone that we take a lot of inspiration from is Kathy Sierra. She's done quite a lot of TED Talks and written a book that called Badass, Making Users Awesome. And for us, that was a game changer, to be honest, and realizing that for us, it's not about creating an awesome tool or an awesome platform or whatever you might call it. It's about making people awesome. It's about having them become the best that they can. And for us, we realized, to do that, we should stop focusing about the tool and what we do and see, okay, how can we enable these kind of activities? How can we enable these kind of uses of tactics for the people? And then it became a lot more apparent that the best way to do that is through a virtual coach. Nice.
Awesome. Sven, just leading on to you as well, because the one thing that you emphasized was how the education system is changing and how you become accidental educators in the world that we live in. What does that look like? And what are your thoughts on that? Sorry, you're still on mute, mate.
a long silence there.
Yeah, it was.
I had my sound on this end, so I heard you say that. Yeah.
Cool.
First of all, great to see you. I'm looking really close to my screen. I can see you become bigger because you're so.
It's cool.
Good to see you all. Yeah. So I'm actually I find the idea of the accidental educator quite useful.
Mm.
It kind of puts the pressure off, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone there accidental educators.
Hands up. He can actually see you. We have like 5, about 4.
Anyone that fell into education? Well, basically that's what happened to me. I kind of fell into education and learning about 10 years ago, as I was training to be an analog photographer. It's more than 10 years ago now. No, but so what I think what we're doing at CoLearn, and I can tell you more about it later too. But I think it's working with the idea of that how and what we need to learn is changing, right? So we talk about that, and I think the examples you share is speaking to that. The effects that technology have, both on the learner experience and on the things that we're expected to do in society. Now, what we're focused on is the role of the educator in all of that. So, in a world where learning is increasingly expected to be personalized and integrated and continuous, what does that mean for the educator? And also, so that's how learning is changing, the how, but then and what, being that, okay, so as technology is coming in, and coming in, it's like it's a new thing, right? But as technology is maturing, and say like that, the being human becomes even more important for us, right? So it's the kind of 21st century skills, the literacy skills and the learning skills and the life skills now that are going to be important to learn and teach. Now, from my perspective, those are things that you never get fully kind of taught in, right? We all go to our graves, and we could always have more empathy, be better critical thinkers, be better collaborators, better leaders, better creatives, right? So what's the effect on that for the school system, for organizations, and for educators? Well, so that's kind of where we're coming from, and we're focused on, I said, like supporting educators to continuously evolve and to continuously or increasingly create modern, impactful learning experiences. And for that, it means kind of going from being seeing the educator as a teacher to seeing the educator as a facilitator. Or, in the school system, looking at the role of the educator, how can we move from the educator, the risk of educator being the bottleneck between great grand visions on a curriculum level, and then really big demands on a student, learner, parent level, and then the educator in the school being kind of stuck in the middle, with their old pedagogical toolbox, which it doesn't need to be that old. It could just be, if you go out, if you're training as a teacher in Sweden today, you're still very much being taught on an old model. You get your binder kind of metaphorically and physically, and you fill it up, and then you kind of iterate on that. Actually, you just deliver that repeatedly for the rest of your career, right? And that's clearly not the approach that we need, we believe. So if you're going to go from that world where there's an increasing amount of accidental educators in organizations, so leaders expected to be educators and facilitators, and we ourselves as participants in society need to be more or less educators of ourselves. We need to have a learner mindset. So we believe that you need kind of a hybrid approach, right? So where you get guidance, and maybe you get a little bit of a reset, a booster. Yeah, I think booster is a good word. Approach where you are guided to make purposeful decisions around technology and pedagogy. It means not just buying into the platform or the functionality or the features, but being able to, and not let that lead your learning experience, but like Michel's talking about, purposefully using the right tools at the right time. And in order to do that, you need to probably ask yourself some new questions. You need to frame some new briefs, right?
Nice.
So that's that's very much where we're coming from.
Yeah.
And what we're designing, and we're very much prototyping, right?
Yeah.
So Michel came up with the current product essentially a few months ago, right? A year and a half ago, right? And we started off together on this journey, me and two previous colleagues, this summer. We've been working together at a great progressive digital education institute before, and we want to focus on educators and enabling them. So if you want, I could show. I mean, it's not like I happen to have it prepared. I have prepared.
Yeah.
I love that.
If you would like to see, and basically, so I'm going to share it there. And what I think is what gives us energy around this is that this is the tool that we need. This is the tool that we need to design learning experiences for. It becomes a bit meta very quickly because we're designing the tool that we want to use. So we're designing this basically a framework for designing what we call is kind of hybrid learning experiences. Hybrid learning experiences that mixes technology, online, blended, face-to-face, not just high-tech, but low-tech, analog technology, not just digital technology.
Yeah.
Basically helps us as an educator to do that. So I'll just take you through this, and then you can go on our website and you can see it and afterwards. But I just want to take, so basically, can you see this, my screen?
Yeah, we can see it.
Great. So basically, the kind of framework that we feel like we need has 4 parts: the kind of foundation, the principles, the elements, and the journey. And it's inspired by design thinking frameworks about, let's say, learning theories from the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s and 2000s and this age too.
Yeah.
And essentially sets up this like foundation where you ask yourself the kind of core questions, framing your learner needs, why is this experience relevant, where are the learners in relation to the outcomes today, what are the possible barriers for learners. This is not rocket science, but it's useful. And the reason why we start with this is because it can be so easy as educators to kind of go with what we did last, go with what we were taught, go with what we experienced in schools ourselves. Or if we haven't got any training, we just do what we saw as a learner. And then you don't know what's behind it. So this is kind of the behind the scenes, right? So the foundation, so these things can then break down, we won't go into details. And then the principles. And this is where our world, kind of our values come through as educators. And everyone should probably have their own set of these principles. These are our principles when we design learning. So everything from educator being facilitator, like we talked about, using technology purposefully, designing for diversity, and in different contexts, whether we work with schools or leadership teams or individual educators, some of these will be more prevalent. Some of these will be more important for the particular experience. And then we kind of design around them. And then we break them down a little bit into what that means and, why would you use technology purposefully? Well, so learners become mindful, intentional, curious users of tech. That's part of it, right? And then the elements, and these are this slide could expand as far and as deep as you want, right? Because these are the different kind of elements and building blocks of your learning experience. And again, it's about finding the right combination, making purposeful choices about, should we use coaching in this experience? Is that really the right thing? Just because it's my preferred teaching style, is it the right learner? Is it right for the learner preference and the learner needs and the learner relevance, right?
It's so funny. The moment that you say that as a coach, my whole body just says, of course you do. Right. That's my immediate response. But Right. And the idea of like content consumption. Oh, that sounds negative, right? If you're going to be progressive in online learning, you can't do just consumption. Well, sometimes, you should consume some content. And SMS and email is also high tech and purposeful uses of technology. It doesn't need to be the latest app, right? Not to say you shouldn't try out Michel's app. It's really.
The funny thing is, I was like, I'm so happy that you say that because we use both text messages and emailing to communicate.
Dude,
yeah.
It's
so I was
not
like,
wrong with emails. It's just the humans using it that's using it.
Exactly. I think the challenge is that we don't. We're not talking about what job to be done.
Yeah.
So much more often think about, okay, what's the job to be done? And I'm thinking that's exactly what you're trying to visualize.
Yeah.
And in so many cases, we talk about these features or these awesome functionalities, but we're not thinking about what is it that we want to achieve. and how will that work? Yeah, sorry, Sven.
No. Sorry, I got 2 more slides. I'll show them quickly, then we can continue talking. And then so these breaks down, and then the journey. What does the journey look like for the individual and for the group of learners? Whether it's synchronous, asynchronous, whether it's blended, whether it's over time, whether it's integrated into your work, whether it's an intensive course, this will look different. But these are the type of touch points that we believe are useful for educators and accidental educators to kind of reflect on and have a point of view on. The key here is to have a point of view and to allow yourself to have that point of view change. As you learn, as you go into it, as you test, as you prototype. And then, and this is, you can find more about this here. And I think I'm not going to go into talking more about the great new online course we're creating for educators to use this framework, etc. I'm not going to go there.
Yeah. So here's a question. So just in regards to both of you, looking at your experiences both, where do you see the ideal scenario? What would be the ideal scenario in regards to creating something that works for both purposefully, in regards to me being a coach, being able to deliver, but also the experience where you can actually put it online and make it slightly augmented? So what would be an ideal mix in regards to what we're doing right now? And that's for you as well, Erica. Your thoughts?
Why don't you want to go first? I can.
Oh, you go. Then I get some time to think.
I'll just like fill the void with sound as I think. Yeah. So I think it's about. I think it really is about doubling down on the things that you are uniquely positioned to do. So, for example, if you're going to design an online course, automate the things that you can automate. Automate the things that you can do. That's going to free up time for you, the things that you're uniquely positioned to do. And that's probably meeting your learners. That's probably talking to them. It's about understanding them. It's about coaching them, being there for them. I don't think you need to be in every corner of your experience all the time in order to be owning it and designing it. So for, when I'm part of delivering some great online courses for a company called Hyper Island now as a subcontractor, designed a really interesting chatbot that's delivering a lot of the things that we know is going to be delivered on day 3, week 4, every time we run that course. And that I don't need to do that. I don't need to write that message. So it's like, I think you're coming from that because it creates space for you and it creates time and it creates basically a brief for you to say, what should I be doing now? How is the best use of my time? Yeah. So I think that's where I kind of leave it.
And I think to continue on the same topic, I think about low-hanging fruits. Like what's the easy catch that we can do here? What is one thing that we could do that would improve a certain activity for our learners? What's one thing that would actually improve these people development from what it is that we're trying to achieve? And try to think of it again. I know I'm again coming back to these badass, but how can I help this individual become badass? Like what's one thing that would do it? I mean, we are from our field, we're talking a lot about management involvement after trainings. Like how can we get managers to be involved after a training, to be coaching, to be helping the participant to reflect on progress that they're doing. And in a lot of cases, what it boils down to is lowering the threshold for them to succeed. So think of it, instead of having the idea of always saying, what they need is more content, what they need is more material, think of it as thresholds. Like how can we help the people, learners, lower their thresholds of succeeding? So ask them, like, what could be hindering you right now? What kind of obstacles are you seeing that you're having? And think of, okay, how can I remove any of those? Like for us, when we were talking about with learning and development departments and talking about management involvement, they were like, yeah, we have it's a cultural issue within our company. Actually, our managers don't really want to be involved. And when we talked to the managers, it was just the opposite. They were like, I really want to be involved. I know that like my employees, they will not change their behaviors if I'm not involved. It's just that I don't really know what to do when I'm involved. What does that mean? What am I actually doing? Yeah. So for them, it was just like, if we could help them, if we could give them like examples of how to be involved, like for them, that was questions that they could ask. If we could give them that, they were like, oh, this is awesome. This is so perfect. We did a huge study in one of the larger telecom companies within Sweden. and we interviewed 150 managers, and it was so clear that what they wanted and what they needed were just suggestions on how to be involved. Like they didn't know. Like they said, like they keep on telling me that I need to be involved. I need to do things with my employees, but I don't know what that is. I've never done a course in involvement. That was usually the feedback that we got. And it was so clear that what they were looking for was just suggestions on good ways to be involved. So what we did was that another feedback was, I'm usually quite insecure of being involved when I don't know what the training's about. So what we did to all the managers was that we put together a really brief summary, like 4 to 5 sentences, but like, this is what the training's about. And these are 2 questions that you can ask your employees when they get back. Nice. And the managers were like, this is amazing. This is the best thing I've gotten from the L&D department in years. It took 4 minutes. I mean, 4 minutes and it was an email. So I think thinking of like, what's low-hanging fruit for us here? I mean, sending an email with a summary and 2 questions, it's extremely low-tech and extremely low-hanging fruit. But at the same time, we're thinking about like lowering thresholds, not about developing this awesomely cool new experience, but just making the process and the engagement for all people involved more easy.
Nice. Any thoughts, Erica?
I think again, it's probably looking at how you feel, or observing how you feel when you're using different types of technology, and actually when you're planning your learning, what you want your learners to be. Do you want them excited? Do you want them reflective, etc., etc.? And then look at what those platforms or tools that you already use, whether it's something simple as WhatsApp, and which of those tools enable you to feel and do what you want your learners to feel and do, and transfer that over. And if you can, use those tools. It doesn't have to be something new.
Nice. Awesome. Sven, there was something that you were talking about before where you mentioned the education system. And the one thing that I really want to pick on is the idea that how do you educate the educators without sending them back to school, especially when they're already in the position that they're in?
I think it's about, so it's really about creating things that they can bring so basically it's integrating how to support them to make that super relevant for what they do with their learners in the classroom, right? Or in their learning environments. So they don't need to make the translation themselves. So if you're working with someone in learning and development, work with them on things that they can do with their team, with their staff, with their employees. If you're working with a 5th grade teacher, make sure that the things you do is also packaged in a way that person can take it to their classroom the next day. Because essentially, especially if we're in the education system, an hour spent on training is an hour spent away from your students. And you're really pushed on time and resource already. So making sure that that's the model should probably be every hour you spend on your own personal development, you should probably save 2 hours or prep for your students. I think that could be a good model to work on. Or like, and I think it puts a pressure on us as then trainers of trainers, or whatever you want to call it, to really think about what is the application value of this. We don't teach them in our principles and our values because we believe that all educators should do like that. But think about what do they need to meet their learners, and how can we support them do that? So to leave our educator egos behind, like we're basically suggesting they do by becoming facilitators. So I think that's a key thing.
Nice.
And to work in work over time. I think it's just like very few people in leadership position or in non-leadership position have time to go take any time away really, but it's about finding ways to integrate it. So making sure that the tasks that you set and the things that you do are done in a way where they integrate well. And I think one thing that you talked about, Michel, I think it's really important to think about when we go from the paradigm of having trainings happening in the room, where the threshold is, do they show up or not, right?
Yeah.
And the great thing about having people in the room is that the people that don't show up, you don't need to care about them.
Exactly.
They're out of they're not your learners.
Yeah.
Well, when we do things virtually, we have everyone on the spectrum there.
Yeah.
We have everyone that got in the car that morning, almost came. We have everyone that didn't get out of bed that morning and almost came. We have the people that went that came on day 1 of the training and they left because of an emergency on day 2 and 3. We have all of them. We need to cater for all of them. We don't have the luxury of only having the people that are 100% committed. So we need to understand our learner profiles, like you're doing an online course. So 10%, if I do an online course, and I think like a high engagement course, like a course that maybe like it costs like quite a lot of money, maybe like a 6-week course, it costs $1,000. There's 80 people, they spend like 6 to 9 hours a week on it for 6 weeks. High touch point, right? But there's still going to be 10% that don't show up because they didn't put themselves forward for it themselves. Maybe they don't really care. Maybe something came up. So how do you create value for them? How do you create materials and experience that they can come back to 3 months later? Because that's an expectation when you do things online, that it's asynchronous and you can come back to it. If someone didn't come to my face-to-face training, I'd say tough luck, right? Or sadly, I can't help you. So you have everyone on the spectrum there. So I think that's also making sure that you don't set your thresholds too high, but you also design for diversity in learner preference, in time commitment. What happens if you fall behind? Are you off the loop? No. Because it happens, right? And the idea of really making sure that technology enables more people to participate, making it more accessible in any way, not just from a price point of view, but also from a, take what I can from it kind of approach.
Great. And
just to connect to that, and this might be a little controversial, but I think in more scenarios we should think about how to help the people that really wants help. I think in a lot of cases we design for the people that they will be slacking, they won't be doing that. How will we get them to do this? And in more cases, actually think about, okay, so the people that really want to succeed here, the people that really want to make a difference out of this training program or whatever it might be, how can we design it to make it really good for them? Because I think in a lot of cases we do different kind of trade-offs just because we're trying to engage the people that are maybe lacking behind or not doing all the things that we wish. And that becomes a trade-off for the people that really want to do well. And I think in more cases, we should really try to think about, okay, the people that really wants to develop and engage that, how can we make that really great for them? And in saying this, I don't mean that we should just ignore the other people, but in more ways, think about the people that really want to make the transition and make it a really good design for them.
Fantastic. Great. I'm going to open up to the floor. Does anyone have any questions? Any thoughts? And here was the tumbleweed moment.
Exactly. I have a. It's not a question, but it's one of the things that has I think one of the researchers that has influenced a lot. His name is Ross Green. He's mainly done research in regards to how to basically educate children in really early years, and how to do a good upbringing, basically. And he has a saying that we try to use a lot and think about a lot in regards to having a mindset. And it's like, what he says is that if they could do well, they would do well. And it translates back to the activities in regards to lowering thresholds. If you always go in with a mindset of the people that we're working with right now that are doing a learning process or trying to change in some way, if we have the mindset of if they could do well, they would do well, that puts an entire different hat on our head on what kind of activities we should drive. And if you go back to the activity or the scenario again in this telecom company that we were talking about, what their mindset were, they don't want to do well and therefore they're not doing it. But if they had a mindset of like, they want to do well, they just don't know how to do it right now, how can we help them do that? That became so different in what kind of activities they would do. I think if we could just in more scenarios go in with that mindset of like, okay, so they want to do well, they just can't do well. So how can I help them do well? I think that in so many activities, will improve the results that we will get tremendously. But it's I know it's hard because we come in with different kind of ideas and different kind of experience, like they'll never do this. But if we just try to have that mindset going into designing and learning, I think that we will see huge results coming out of it.
Fantastic. We have 2 hands in the room that we're just going to address really quickly. Sorry, what's your name in the blue? Hello, Sophie. Everyone say hi to Sophie. Everyone just say hi to Sophie. Hi, Sophie. Great. Go for it, Sophie. Shout really loud so you can hear you.
Yeah, sure. I'm really interested in what Michel said about the challenges of not getting the behavioural change that you want through the kind of prompts and everything like that. And I was
Let me stop you there before. Could you hear that, Michelle?
Yeah, so far so good.
Good. Listen, keep going.
And I was wondering kind of what success have you seen, and is it quantifiable, and how do you kind of feed that back into your data systems and improve and iterate?
Yeah. How many hours do I have now?
You got 2 minutes.
2 minutes, awesome. First question being, how do we visualize it? Was that kind of the...
Yeah, what success have you seen?
Right, what kind of success? Okay, cool. So we have, I'll divide this into 2 different things. So the way we have, or the metrics that we're using or tactics that we're using of measuring results are twofold. One is interviews. So we're trying to collect a lot of qualitative data on what kind of behavioral change are we actually creating in regards to what kind of behavioral change do I myself see that I've done, basically. And the qualitative data helps us a lot in also enabling the right kind of activities. So we do a lot of interviews, and we also collect a lot of qualitative data back to the trainers that are actually doing the trainings so that they can see. So what kind of changes in regards to behavioral change do I believe that I've done? And that's twofold as well. We want the learners to, or the employees to actually be able to visualize that for themselves, because that usually creates a lot of motivation in seeing, oh shit, I've actually done quite a few things in creating new activities or enabling me to do more activities. The other part of measuring the results is self-evaluation. And what you do as a participant in the beginning is that you create a desired outcome within your action plan. So it's basically, if I've really achieved what I've set up that I want to do after this training, this is what my everyday will look like in 2 months. This is what other people are seeing that I'm doing. And this is what the results that I'm getting. And then you get to, on a scale of 1 to 10, say, how far are you away from that desired outcome right now? And then continuously grade yourself in the month after. So on average, during 2018, we had, I think, 3,800 people that created action plans and did the activities afterwards. And on average, we had a self-evaluation of 3.2 on a 1 to 10 scale at the training session. And on average, we were able to move that to 6.7 a month afterwards.
That's not bad. It's nice. Awesome. I'm gonna go.
I just want to throw that up there.
Yeah, it's really good. Literally, do you know what's so funny? The moment that you said that, there were a lot of nodding heads in the room that you did not see. So yeah, you got the nod of approval, which is fantastic.
That's nice.
Everyone say hello. This is Natasha. Everyone say hi to Natasha. Hi guys. Go for it.
So I was really interested in the comment about how you might have the full spectrum of people. So you'll have people who might not be so engaged. And I was just really interested to know what some of your considerations are in that respect, or what practically then do you need to do to cater to that environment?
Nice. Good question.
Was that in regards to my comment about?
Yeah. Both of you.
Yeah. I can start. So what we got in a lot of cases, so we measured the number of people that are doing, reflecting and practicing weekly after a training. We're measuring that. And in a lot of cases, we get 80-85% engaging and practicing, reflecting on a weekly basis. And in so many cases, these trainers were like, oh, okay, these 10 and 15%, how can we help them? And I was like, don't think about them. We have no idea what has actually hindered them to do this. Because in a lot of interviews that we did, it was activities that we could never affect the reasons why they're not do it. Someone like, I got a flooding in my kitchen and therefore I didn't have time to do it. Someone like, my kid has been sick and therefore I haven't been able to do it. Things that are so out of your control. So what I'm trying to say, what we're trying to help the trainers to focus on instead is, okay, these 80%, what's one thing that you could do together with them to get them one step further, instead of trying to think about the flooding in the kitchen or the sick kid, because that is so out of your control. And try to instead think about, okay, these 80%, how could we make something a little bit simpler for them to make it 1 week further, for example.
Go for it, Sven. Any thoughts?
Yeah, definitely. And I do think it's important to focus to not lose focus on the spectrum by focusing only on the people that are like falling behind. But I do think it's important to. So one of the approaches that I typically try to take is to think about to make sure that that the people that are not engaging and not falling behind, that they don't feel any shame about that, right? Because so many times a little bit of disengagement, a little bit of falling behind, and you feel like, oh no, what will the trainer think? What will my peers think? And then you disconnect with that because you think, oh, I can't catch up, or I'm not jumping through the hoops, and I will only get 8 out of 10% or whatever it is, right? So I think it's about connecting to seeing like what do you want to, finding out what's blocking you, what do you want to achieve in the end, and what are alternative routes to get you there. And that might just be through a simple conversation. And I think it's also then about making sure that the material that you're providing and the resources that you're providing are packaged in a way that allows for asynchronous kind of self-study. So whether you call it catching up, whether you call it doing things in your own time, alternative ways of doing it, I think it's key to have those mechanics in place and make sure that you're not designing a too narrow line for success, but that you're allowing for diverging routes essentially. And I think another thing that I find is really good for creating the ownership and the dedication in the first place is some sort of like call it social pressure, call it peer accountability. So creating learning pods, learning groups, peer groups. Obviously, this is not new to any of you. The impact of that, but making sure that those also are not designed in a way where if one person or 10% falls out, that structure crumbles, right? That you don't pair, don't pair people up, because you're going to put two people under risk of getting a really bad experience. The person that's not showing up will have a bad experience. The person that's being stood up has a horrible experience. So making big enough groups to allow for humanity to happen, kind of like, or every day to happen.
I'm going to interject there because we've slightly run out of time, and I know there's one more question. Do we have enough time for one more question, Erica? Or no? Yeah, one more. All right, cool. Go for it. Yeah, you had a question, didn't you?
Yeah, it was regarding the data collection for behavioral change. From Michael.
Michel.
Sorry.
So I'm going to stop you there. Can you hear Michel?
Yes.
Just about.
Almost every word.
Did you do any kind of like data collection or follow-up of the intervention that your trainers do? Because there is a risk of having that kind of like social disability, which you always think that you've changed, but the actual evidence that will reflect behavioral change is when those changes or those effects from your interventions have been maintained. And could you collect any kind of data around that, or is it just A/B kind of like data collection point?
Let's see if I can summarize the question. So, like, can we measure long term? Was that kind of the question?
Yeah. Can you
follow-up measurement in which intervention is no longer in place? Still can collect the data, and you see that behavioral change is being maintained.
Yeah, cool. So actually, we haven't done that much about it. We haven't done that much, I should say, we haven't done that much in regards to large groups. We've done quite a lot of experiments in regards to it, and we actually done quite a lot of experiments in regards to ourselves within that field, which has been super interesting. But I think the challenging part for us has been to narrow down on the challenge with the training, and then to create the right kind of mini activities or mini behavioral change activities that we know are beneficial for the larger behavioral change. And that is also what we're really trying to focus on. Like, how can we get these small steps in place of reflecting and practicing so that we have the best possibility of doing the larger behavioral change that we have set up for maybe a year, 2 years. But we haven't done any studies in regards to it. But it would be really cool to do it. But the honest answer, no, and we haven't done it because we haven't had time to do it yet. But in regards to ourselves, what we have done, and a huge learning in doing those experiments has been that a challenge that we usually caught ourselves doing, and this connects to what Sven said before, was that we set this really challenging goal, like a year, 2 years away. And then we see that we got to have like challenging activities to take us to that challenging goal. And that's such a faulty hypothesis, because I think it's just the opposite. Like, we need to have super simple activities that will in total take us to that challenging goal. But we see since the goal is challenging, the activities to take us there got to be the same. A typical example is going to the gym. Like on New Year's Eve, I'll be going to the gym 2 times a week. That's a super challenging goal. I mean, for every week to go to the gym twice, that takes a lot. But if I really try to make sure that I'm succeeding the first week, so I'm focusing on, I'm just going there. I'm really just I'm going there. I'm putting on my shorts, my t-shirt, and I'll be on the bike for 5 minutes. That's what I'm succeeding with. Then it will be so much easier for me to have a positive feeling about that, creating the behavior of going to the gym, but the experience not have to be challenging. I think in a lot of cases, what we do is that we go to the gym, we go to the cycle machine or whatever, and we are staying there until we taste blood. And then we're like, now I've been training. Awesome. I'm really on the right path of succeeding. You're so not. Like, you don't want to come back. It's exhausting, and you're like tired for 10 hours. I think we should try to think in more ways, like, how can we make the experience so nice when we have a challenging long-term goal? How can we make the small activity so nice that we're looking forward to do it the next time? Nice. Awesome. Great. I'm going to end it there. Guys, thank you so much. If we could just give them a round of applause. Fantastic. Cool. Thank you. So that's my hands. Those are my hands. Nice. Great. Erica, any closing thoughts?
No, just I think it's time to get talking to each other.
Fantastic.
And learn more about why everyone else is here.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. So in order to do that, go for it. Closing thoughts.
Feel free to reach out. I have my bedside lamp here on my face. It's getting a bit red. But feel free to reach out. I'd love to connect with all of you, and please join our community, Co-Learn community on Facebook. And I'd love to, any thoughts? So I think you maybe have my details in the invite, but if not, you can send that out. I'd love to chat more.
Yeah.
I think both of me and Sven are on LinkedIn, so connect with us there. Awesome.
We'll share details as a follow-up as well, so you can get everything.
Great. So how are we going to do that? Should we head outside, grab a few bits? Great. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a 5-10 minute break, and then we're going to get to do some activities. So gents, ladies and gents, thank you so much, everyone, guys. Please. Give me 2 minutes.
Det är nu vi kan börja prata svenska istället.
Do you know what? We're so augmented. I can actually transfer you some pizza, so I'm going to try and throw it to the camera.
I'd love that.
That'd be dope.
That'd be dope.
Okay. Come on. Pizza will be coming too.
Yeah, no, don't worry. You can leave your stuff in here. You don't need to worry about your stuff. You know, it's not like guys. Oh yeah, I can look here. Thank you so much. In regards to the session in itself, I'm sorry we kept waiting and we kept it a bit longer. We have recorded the session, so if you want a copy of it, what we can do is just send it to you, and then you can just use it as bite-sized clips for whatever you guys want to do with it.
That's awesome. I'd love that.
Yeah.
Nice, sweet. Thank you very much, Sven. Thanks a lot, Michelle. Like, really appreciate it. Really good.
It was cool.
Really engaged. I know you couldn't see their faces, but they were taking loads of notes and listening to.
Yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it, and I think that me and Sven will catch a coffee soon as well. So this was a lot of good things happening.
You know, speaking in Swedish, leaving me outside. It's
Exactly.
fine.
Yeah.
Have a good one, then.
Nice meeting you too, mate.
Nice meeting you. See you
Bye.
later.
Take care.